The Dupont de Ligonnes family was the epitome of the modern-day conventional French household in their community. They owned a large house in the expensive part of Nantes, France. The 4 children attended local private schools where aristocratic families sent their children. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnes was an aristocrat with a direct lineage to French nobles dating back before the French Revolution in the 18th century. Xavier spent a lot of time away from home to manage his business ventures. His wife Agnes was a teacher at the local Catholic high school. When Xavier was home, he led an active social life with his wife, and they both appeared to enjoy each other's company when seen in public. On Sundays, the family would be seen dining together at a local pizzeria. He and his wife would occasionally take square dancing classes with other couples who boasted of the husband and wife's happiness. Neighbors recalled the 4 Ligonnes children running and laughing in the yard with the family's Labradors. Their home was also the popular and welcoming location where Agnes would serve snacks to friends her children invited over after school. The family appeared normal and happy, but appearances can be deceiving. One day, relatives and close friends of the Dupont de Ligonnes family received a letter from Xavier explaining he was an undercover agent for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, and they needed to move away to an undisclosed location under the Witness Protection Program. Needless to say, everyone was shocked by this letter. They knew Xavier was gone a lot for work, but no one knew he had ties to undercover police or DEA agents in the United States. Then Xavier sent a mysterious email prompting authorities to get involved and investigate the family's disappearance. When neighbors complained of a foul odor coming from the Dupont de Ligonnes house. On April 21st, 2011, Agnes, Arthur, Thomas, Anne, and Benoit were all found dead, individually wrapped up in sleeping bags and buried under the patio in the backyard. Officers expected to find the father's body somewhere near the crime scene, but soon they learned he was alive and well. Credit card records revealed he was staying at a lavish hotel in southern France. Less than 2 weeks after Xavier's family was discovered, his Citroën C5 was found near a cheap hotel almost 700 miles away from Nantes, near the French Riviera. Then he just vanished. Welcome to another episode of Crimson Sin with Tamsin Leigh. I am your host, Tamsin Leigh. Full show notes and sources can be found in the description. Today's case is a very intriguing mystery. The Xavier Dupont de Ligonnes murders is a case that has captivated the world with its chilling details and unanswered questions. It remains one of the most intriguing mysteries in recent history. In April 2011, French authorities discovered the bodies of Dupont de Ligonnes' wife and 4 children, buried in the backyard of their home in Nantes, while Xavier was nowhere to be found, sparking a massive manhunt that would span across Europe. As more information surfaced about Xavier's past and his possible motives for committing such a heinous crime, the public became increasingly fascinated by this enigmatic figure. Xavier was raised in Versailles, and at an early age he showed he was not entirely happy with the Catholic Church. His mother was very religious and was unable to convince her son to embrace the devout Catholic life she had. Still, he regularly attended Mass and dutifully went to catechism classes as a child. But he did not share the same enthusiasm as his mother for the religion. Xavier would later express his dissatisfaction with the religion not long before his family was murdered. While he was not particularly religious, some elements of the Catholic faith intrigued him in adulthood. One post to the popular forum appeared to vaguely foretell the gruesome acts he was going to take. Xavier described how he was repulsed, yet captivated by certain morbid aspects of the Catholic religion. In particular, he was fascinated by the concept of sacrificial rite ceremonies. Xavier's father was not known to be very religious, however, he was known for being a playboy. He left the family when Xavier was 10, heading for Africa. His father would temporarily keep in touch with Xavier by sending him occasional letters, but they very rarely reconnected in person. For Xavier's 18th birthday, his father bought him a vintage Triumph Spitfire sports car. He would proudly drive around the streets of Versailles in his new toy that Daddy bought him. The very same year after receiving this gift, he met his wife, Agnes. However, the pair would go their separate ways, and Xavier entered the army for a year. It was mandatory for young Frenchmen to join the army at this time, but Xavier was also obligated to join right out of high school because his father did not pay for his university studies. After leaving the army, Xavier would go through a series of low-skill jobs. In 1984, at 23 years old, he was unemployed and alone in the Var region of France. He would eventually move back in with his mother in Versailles, where he became involved with Agnes again. When they reconnected, he learned Agnes had a baby named Arthur, whom Xavier later adopted. Eventually, the two married and left Versailles. Being married and having a family did not provide Xavier with the motivation to change his professional situation. The family settled in the Ardèche region in the southeast of France in 1983. Xavier worked in a garden supply shop for 3 years, which was his longest period of employment. But after that job, Xavier would move his family. He would move his family to different towns after working after a while, collecting unemployment and then moving on again. The family lived in several towns in southeast France. During this time, Agnes gave birth to Thomas, Anne, and Benoit. The family made their way to western France in 2002, before settling down in the house in Nantes in 2003. The reason the family moved to Nantes was for Xavier's professional ambitions. He stopped working at low-skilled jobs and began a business called Selref, a company that audited the quality of services that different hotels offered business travelers. Xavier would pose as a guest in a variety of different French hotels and report back to his clients about the locations. This was necessary for businesses that held off-site seminars or sent executives to France for business conferences. So he was now his own boss and had established a small business that was making modest revenue. However, Xavier's business never made a profit. The business also accumulated a lot of debts, with creditors knocking on the door, with court orders demanding tens of thousands of euros. Agnes held down a few jobs while the family lived at Nantes, but the pay was a far cry from what they desired. The family lived beyond their means, with their clothes, cars, and private school expenditures. Agnes was a babysitter for a while, then a school assistant. She also inherited 80,000 euros, but that immediately disappeared into Xavier's business affairs. Needless to say, Agnes was a very unhappy woman. She was left alone a lot of the time to drive the kids to activities and doctor's appointments, all while struggling to pay the bills with overextended credit. She would find comfort in online forums where she discusses the family's financial strains. In a popular French forum that was devoted to health and well-being topics, Agnes would pour her heart and soul into these forums about just how unhappy she was. While her husband's unsuccessful career was a problem, what really seemed to trouble her the most was the problems that arose in their marriage. She complained her husband was a workaholic who was gone on business a lot and how difficult he was to live with when he was home. Agnes described her husband as too critical, cold, and rigid, and tried to lord over the household like a military drill sergeant. She continued to write that when Xavier was home, he would lock himself up in the basement, which was his home office. When he wasn't in his office, he hardly spoke of anything other than how overworked he was or about his business projects. One horrifying post she wrote stated that Xavier spoke of how it would not be a tragedy if the entire family were to die. Agnes had written of the conversation where her husband stated, "If we all die all at once, then everything would be over. We would no longer miss anything." While Agnes found solace in online forums, Xavier sought comfort in the arms of another woman, whom he had dated in high school. The woman, who remains anonymous for her safety, is a successful businesswoman and loaned Xavier 50,000 euros for another one of his doomed business ventures. Only a few months after receiving the loan, Xavier was asking for money again. He sent his mistress an email asking her for more money and was all around desperate. In the email, he offered an explanation as to what happened to the 50,000 euros she had loaned him and why he needed to borrow more money. But in the first lines of the message before going into asking for more money, Xavier awkwardly wrote to his girlfriend, "Before anything else, I would love for you to understand what is going on inside my head. I want you to know what really inspires me, and I don't want you to take me for a manipulator, a con artist, or a hypocrite, nor for a liar or a crook." Obviously, he was setting the stage to refrain his mistress from thinking negatively about him. He then explained how he lost the money she had loaned him. His business plan was to buy and resell coupons for free drinks. However, he did not specify who he was selling these to, nor did he tell her how much they cost. Xavier further explained that this plan once had the potential to generate tens of thousands of euros per day in profits, and explained that a recent cut in the French sales tax had ruined his plans. He also implied he was having trouble with the French government's fraud prevention agency, but did not go into detail about this issue. He then lamented his woes, writing, "I am in financial ruin and at the end of my rope, like I have never been before." Xavier then explained he was 4 months behind on rent, couldn't pay for his son's school tuition, and his car broke down. Continuing his financial situation, he told his mistress he had to borrow money that he needed to pay back from his mother to buy his children Christmas gifts, and that he was being harassed by tax authorities for money he owed in social taxes. The family was expected to be evicted from their home at the end of winter, as French eviction laws forbid foreclosures or evictions during the winter months. But his lamenting didn't end there. As he furthered, he only had 500 euros to pay for food until the end of the month. Xavier then explained that he needed 15,000 euros within 15 business days to keep the family functioning and 10,000 euros so that his business scheme could work. Then the email took a haunting turn as Xavier wrote, "I don't sleep anymore," and lay awake with morbid ideas, such as burning down the house after giving everyone sleeping pills, or throwing myself under a truck so that Agnes would get 600,000 euros. I have an anxiety attack every day when I first wake up in the morning that sometimes lasts until noon, to the point that I have trouble breathing and suffer from heart palpitations. But apparently Xavier's mistress was not moved by his pleas for help, because she quickly broke off the relationship and began legal proceedings to recover the money she had loaned him. After the murder of Xavier's family, his mistress received one more email from her scorned lover. Authorities did not disclose the contents of the message. However, they did divulge that it contained both direct and indirect threats, and even stated she would live in hell on earth for the next 30 years. When she received this email, she immediately went to the police and told them everything she knew about Xavier Dupont de Ligonnes. With all of these financial issues and odd death statements from Xavier, I think we can safely assume he was the culprit in the murders, but there are plenty of theories, so just stick around to the end of the episode because there are so many interesting theories about this case. So what led up to these murders? A few odd and indescribable occurrences happened before the murders took place. The children's school received a final payment settlement, and Xavier called his wife's employer to inform them she was suffering from gastroenteritis. 2 days later, her employer received a text message stating Agnes was hospitalized and could not be contacted by phone. Then the next week, her employer received a letter supposedly from Agnes terminating her employment, stating that she was following her husband to the United States. The Dupont de Ligonnes home was partially emptied, and a sign on the letterbox stated, "Return all mail to sender. Thank you." Xavier would also purchase cement, a shovel, and a hoe. On March 12, 2011, Xavier would purchase rifle bullets. Between March 26th and April 1st, he visited a shooting range 4 times, obtaining a firearms license on February 2nd. Thomas and Benoit started learning how to shoot at this time, while Arthur was scheduled to start learning also